Welcome to episode 20 of the Primary Complete podcast. On this episode, we sat down with Matt Ballance. Matt is an engineer with the City of Asheville Fire Department and the Secretary-Treasurer of the Asheville Professional Firefighters. We talked about his career and experiences, mental health practices in the fire service. Matt has a blog where he writes about his perspectives in areas such as the fire service, family life, and mental health. Here's Matt Ballance.
What year did you start the fire service?
Start in the fire service?
Yeah, period.
Early February 2003.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm coming up on, what is that? February will be 18 years in the fire
18
service.
years.
Yeah.
All with Asheville?
No. I started as a volunteer with Swannanoa Fire Department, which is outside of Asheville, eastern Buncombe County.
Okay.
Yep. I started there as a volunteer about a week before I turned 19.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What drew you to Asheville?
I went up there to go to school.
Okay.
I grew up outside of Raleigh, in southern Wake County, about 30 minutes outside of Raleigh. And I went up there to go to school at Warren Wilson College, a small little liberal arts college in Swannanoa, in eastern Buncombe County. Went in as a history and political science major, and that lasted all of about 2 weeks. And then I majored in social interest of a college student for about a year and a half. But during that freshman year,
What's the definition of that?
getting drunk a lot.
All right. Okay.
And partying and spending a lot of mom and dad's money the way I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, during that first year, a friend of mine that lived down the hall in my dorm, she had a family friend. She was from Pennsylvania, and she had a family friend who was a lieutenant at Swannanoa Fire Department down there in the town where the college was. I got to be friends with him through her. We got to be just beer drinking buddies, basically, hanging out with him. And through hanging out, he told me, he was like, "Man, you ought to come volunteer. Try it out. Get you away from school." Yeah. I was like, sure, why not? I mean, I'd never grown up thinking I was going to be. If somebody told me when I was 18 years old and graduated high school that I'd be, chasing fire trucks and shit, I'd say you're out of your mind. There's no way. So, so I started volunteering, signed up, volunteered. And I mean, it was literally 2 or 3 weeks into it. I was like, holy shit. This is cool. Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. And literally just kind of jumped into it with both feet. When my freshman year ended, I didn't want to go home. I mean, I didn't want to go back to Raleigh for the summer. All my friends were there at the fire department now. And I talked to my chief. I don't know if y'all know Anthony Penland. He's big with the State Firemen's Association now. He's still chief there at Swannanoa. But I talked to him, and I had heard through some of the guys that had been there for a while that people in the past had stayed there at the fire department for a while. And I talked to him and basically worked out a deal that I'd lived there that summer after my freshman year of college. And basically the deal was I'd live there. I'd help out with duties around the station and run calls whenever I could. And I probably got more experience and more kind of a taste for what the job was in that 3-4 month span than I could have gotten in 2 years anywhere else.
Right.
And I was hooked after that. So started sophomore year of college, went about a month and a half into it, and I was like, what am I doing? I was like, I don't want to be here. I'm done. This isn't really what I want to be doing long run anymore. Mm-hmm. By that time, I pretty much figured out that's what I really wanted to do as a career. So I had this really scary couple of weeks where I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna quit school. I'm gonna actually do this. Mm-hmm. And talked to my parents about it and told them, and they were definitely kind of taken aback. They had seen how much I enjoyed it over the 9 months prior.
Is there any family history in the fire service?
None.
So none
whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't have any ties to it whatsoever.
I got you.
Yeah, my mom was a dental hygienist.
Yeah,
and my dad worked in pharmaceuticals.
I got you.
So I mean, there's nobody in the family.
So
whatsoever.
lack of understanding for them. They just knew the joy in you.
Yeah, they saw how much I was enjoying.
Sure,
absolutely. And that's one thing that they had always instilled in me as I was growing up. And I don't know how many times they told me when I was growing up they didn't care what I did as long as I was happy doing it. And
that's a nice thing to
sounds like great parents to me,
man. Yeah, and, especially as a parent now, that's something that I want for my boys, and I appreciated it at the time. As I'm older now, I really appreciate it. How much they instilled that in me. And I was lucky enough to find something where I actually that fit. I enjoyed it. So I made the jump. I left school. Just started, work some construction and things while I was getting certifications and working odds and ends jobs while I was trying to get experience. And finally I got hired on full time. I started part time, not long after that, after I left school. And then I started there full time in probably, it was either 2004 or 2005. And I was there for a few years before I went to the city in 2008. Went to Asheville.
What kind of rigs were in the volunteer house?
Man, we actually had a pretty good fleet. We had a couple engines. We had two or three just your standard engines that we would send out on any sort of structure fires. A couple commercial cabs. We had a pretty good what they called Squad 6 at that time. It wasn't technically a heavy rescue, but for early 2000s and in that area, what we had on it, we could hold our own for sure. And we have that area has I-40 and Highway 70 running right through that district. So we ran our share of good wrecks all the time. Yeah. So definitely got a lot of experience on that aspect of it.
Tankers, or you have some hydrants around?
Yeah, we had a tanker. There was some hydrants, but definitely once you got kind of off the beaten path of Highway 70, that ran through the district, you got a lot more rural and having to do some water supply issues through there.
It seems to be a common story with the people who don't have family ties to the fire service. It's like the fire service finds us. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Just hearing your story, Matt, and then like my story is very similar. I don't have any family in the fire service, but it just kind of found me. I had a friend.
Yeah, mine too.
Who was in it.
Same exact thing.
Yeah, it just kind of found you. You had a girlfriend in college, a friend who was a girl in college, and her dad, or wasn't that right? Her dad.
It was just a friend of hers, a family friend
so
that she had grown up with. Yeah.
So it's wild how the puzzle pieces kind of fit together.
Well, and I think something that goes back to what you're saying with that is, you talk about nobody. I don't know your exact background. I'm an only child. I don't have a lot of family.
I have three older sisters, but nobody in the fire service. From my line now to the history of my family.
Sure.
No fire service.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the biggest things that I found with it was, when I started volunteering, I was 4 hours from home where I'd grown up. I don't have any brothers or sisters. I've got, aunts and uncles and some cousins. We're spread out all over the place. We don't see each other that much. We're not close. And those guys became my family.
Right.
Real fast. And at a time in my life where, I was 4 hours from home and I probably needed that more than I knew at that time.
That's interesting.
And, it was, those guys saw me through some shit, at a very early age when, I was a child, I didn't know who I was or what I was doing. And they helped me through it. And to this day, I haven't worked there in almost 14 years, but to this day, so those guys, I know I can call them right now. And
that's an interesting perspective where the fire service filled a void for the need of family for you. Flip that, and the fire service filled a void of where I felt family my whole life.
Yeah.
It was there for that. You needed it, I needed it, but you didn't have it and got it, and I've had it my whole life and still needed that hole to be filled.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Never
thought about it like that.
I didn't have any, like I said, I didn't have any siblings, and I think that's where the void was. And I think I was just talking about this with my parents just recently, because my wife was saying something about me being, asking about what it was like for me to be an only child, and it didn't bother me any. I didn't have anything to base it off of. I thought it was great. I didn't have any issues with it. As I've grown older, I've seen where it would definitely be great to have siblings to kind of bounce things off of, or to lean on in times. And I think that's the void that got filled with that. You know, I've got a great, you know, like I said, I don't have an extended family, but the core bit of family, my mom and dad and the group that I have, they're great. We've always had a great family. But there's definitely something about having brothers or sisters.
For sure.
That is definitely appealing, and I think was filled by those guys that I was around and when I was 19 years old and very impressionable and trying to figure out who the hell I was and what I wanted to do with my life. And yeah, I mean, like, they fed me, they gave me a place to live sometimes. They took care of me, and that's not a small feat.
For sure.
It goes a long way. So I think that was just as big a thing in terms of the job with me going forward as it was anything, you know, with the whether calls or, you know, anything like that. I love doing that stuff, but I think the camaraderie and this becomes your family, and it's important. And
pretty magical in that way.
It's incredibly magical, and there's nothing else I've ever felt like it. So, yeah. I think it shaped a lot of things with me going forward and things that I was interested in going forward. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get to Asheville. Was that the guys at your volunteer house kind of pushing you towards the paid side of things, or was it?
No.
I'm getting a smile. This must be a good story.
I mean, no, it's not really. You know, it's not really anything like a crazy story. It's just more. I think I was in my early 20s. I was at that point. You know, I think you're still wanting as much excitement as you can get.
Yeah,
you're wanting
guilty.
Yeah, you're wanting the excitement. You're wanting the. Well, let's be honest. I was probably wanting the illustriousness that comes along with being at Asheville instead of at a county department. And I wanted something bigger. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't for the fact that I didn't love where I was. It was just more that I wanted more calls. I wanted big calls. I wanted more chance to move up or more opportunities. And Asheville afforded that to me, and it was close. So I applied, and I was extremely lucky enough to get hired on my first try. And
that's outstanding. Yeah.
And that was January 7th of 2008 was when I got hired.
Nice.
Or when my start date was. So yeah, and the rest is history. I've been there for 13 and a half years now.
Did you go through a recruit academy?
I did. So they've done over the last 20 years different kind of several different, I guess, ways of doing an academy through Asheville. And at that time, they had kind of partnered with AB Tech Community College that had a fire program that they were building or trying to build at that time, and they had a program called BFIT, which stood for, I think it was Basic Fire Indoctrination Training, where they were trying to pull in people from the surrounding area, get on the certifications through an academy type process, and then they could have those certifications to possibly get hired on somewhere. So at that time, when I got hired, the city had kind of partnered with AB Tech to run basically a BFIT that was kind of a academy for the city and one of these BFIT academies at the same time. So it was a mix of us that were recruits from the city and a mix of us or the other ones that were from outside in the community.
Okay.
So that made for an interesting dynamic.
I bet.
Yeah. And I mean,
seems like a fertile ground for competition.
It was. It was. There was times where it made some friction in some ways. There was also some times where I think, though, that it also gave us an opportunity to kind of mentor, even though we weren't above these other guys. I mean, they were in the same program we were, but some of these guys that were coming in through the community college program, they didn't have any experience whatsoever, and they were just trying to get it to possibly get a job sometime. Mm-hmm. So it gave us a chance that either were, had gotten a job with the city or had experience from other places to kind of come in behind them and help them through that, try to mentor them a little bit while we're still trying to learn and get our wings under us as Asheville firefighters at the same time. So, I mean, it had its pros and cons. And since then, they've gone back to just a standard Asheville Academy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, which I think is, honestly, I think is better. I think it's good. When we hire people, I think that they need to know our way of doing it, not our way plus what the community colleges want.
Of course, well, yeah. So. We fight that fight here too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Same thing. We have a, I think they call it a First Responders Academy here, and it does. I mean, it's a good program.
Yeah,
it's a good program, but it's not an Hanover County Fire Academy.
Right.
So we fight that same fight.
Yeah, I'm glad. It worked for us, and kind of the metric that I base it off of is the people that we had that I got hired on with our class. The vast majority of us are still there.
That's awesome.
And the ones of us that are there, we've all moved up in some sort of way.
That's cool.
In different ranks throughout the department. And what was really cool about that one too, there was several of us in that class that knew each other from the fire service before we had ever gotten hired with Asheville. One of the guys that I got hired with, who is now one of our safety and training officers at Asheville, led me into my first house burn when I was 19 years old. I mean, he was one of my early mentors, and we got hired on together. Yeah. So that's been cool to see that kind of progress over time. And so it's been good. We had a good group that got hired on when I did, and those guys have done some great things.
That's good. I'm going to steal this from you before you get a chance to ask it. I'm going to ask it.
All right.
Your first assignment when you were fresh out of the academy, all that good stuff, and you got assigned to your first company or whatever, however y'all describe it, did you have good mentors within your house? You don't have to say names if they weren't good mentors, but if they were, you can say their names. That's fine.
Yeah, no. So how it worked when I first came out of the academy, at that time we were when you came out of the academy, you floated. You didn't have an assigned house as soon as you came out at that time. They moved you around as needed to fill holes where they needed you, and so that you would learn the city.
How do you feel about that?
Personally, I think it's great.
Okay.
And I understand the concept and the mentality of trying to put somebody with one company as soon as they come out of an academy for the ownership aspect of it. Sure. And the accountability aspect of it between that recruit and also with that officer. I also think, though, there's a negative with that. It keeps people from learning different parts of the city. It keeps people from learning different people within the department. And, I mean, we could all wish that we run calls 14 hours a day. But the vast majority of what we're doing is being around each other in a firehouse. And you got to learn personalities. And I think that's one of the biggest things with kind of just floating people around, is getting them the opportunity to learn different personalities, how different officers do things, different areas of the city, how things work in different places. And that's been kind of morphed over time at Asheville. That we went through a phase where everybody just went straight to a truck and you didn't float at all. I think we're starting to get more into, you're not floating around the city, but you're going to float around a battalion a little bit and learn. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with. Here's the other thing. Sorry, I'm thinking things as we go through.
You're good. You're good.
I think it makes you work hard when you're doing that, because when I came on, and you knew you were going to float, you wanted to make a damn good impression.
You had to impress. You not just.
That's right. You had to make.
Keep impressing.
That's right. You wanted to make a good impression. You wanted to do a good job and make a good name for yourself, so that when the time came, hopefully, you could get a spot on one of those trucks that is revered there in the city, or you had an opportunity to do that. It made people, in my opinion, not as
complacent,
yeah. Not feeling like they were just, given something. So
that's an interesting perspective. The latter of what you just explained. I asked you that for a reason. I take the hard stand, or I feel the hard stand with putting them with a company so they can learn the ropes. But hearing your perspective, and I'm only saying this because I've never heard the other side of it.
Sure.
I just hear from our floaters, which all, for the majority, say that they would love to be in one house.
Yeah.
Ours is a little different. Our system was a little different. You said float around a battalion and stuff like that. Our floaters could start out on the north side of New Hanover County and 2 hours later be shipped to the south side.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
It is.
But yeah, it's good to hear your perspective, and I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. So I think there's extremes to either way of that. I never, people have different situations and get treated in different ways. I never had one of those experiences where I was like jerked around and had to go 4 or 5 different stations in one shift.
Right.
Now, I definitely had to move around from shift to shift when I was coming in. Mostly it was around a kind of set, certain stations that kind of, that's where I rotated through.
It got to be predictable a little bit.
Yeah. A little bit. But yeah, I agree with you. That doesn't do anybody any good just to be kind of on their toes all day. Like, where am I going 5 hours from now?
Well, prior to floaters becoming a part of New Hanover, I was blank to the city. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I thought you were assigned and that was it.
Yeah,
because that's the way it's been my whole career. We didn't have floaters. If there was a vacancy, then an overtime position came available and somebody filled it. And that was just the way it worked.
Right.
So that's an interesting perspective, and it seems to be that's kind of the flow we're going with. Our new people, we put them in floater positions, which, like I said, until I heard your perspective on it, I've kind of had the hard stance, but I kind of disagree with that because they kind of need to learn, a particular way. But like I said, hearing your perspective, that kind of makes a difference.
And just to add to that, I mean, I don't know your leadership style. I've never worked for you. I take it, though, that you're investing in your people. You want your people to do well.
100%, yeah.
All right. Let's just say, hypothetically, that person gets put on a truck with an officer who is not invested in them.
Less motivated.
There you go.
So you've got a person then at that point that right off the bat, they're being kind of hands off. And what their first maybe year or two in the department, what their experience is somebody of going, I don't really give a damn what you do.
Yeah, that's my warped reality too, that thinking that there's not any of those that exist.
And I wish that was the case.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm not sitting here bashing people.
No,
but that's the realism of it, is that whether it's the fire service or anything else,
sure,
it could be you work in a drugstore. You're going to have people like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's good for people to see different variables.
I agree. Like I said, I don't disagree with your perspective at all. I can't find any fault with it. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah,
I'm stealing Steve's words.
Same from my perspective. I see it your way as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. It throws averages in, like, you could end up with somebody less motivated, or you could get a stud.
Yeah.
You get somebody, and then you got that best assignment in the world. Is that going to happen every time? So if you do the floater thing, it does kind of smooth out the lows and the highs and just gets everybody a fair shot.
Right.
I like that idea of trying to build a reputation.
And I mean, at the end of the day, I can only speak for myself.
Sure.
And I know what it did in my case when I was hired and when I came out of the academy and I was floating around, I wanted to try to make the best impression possible. Whether I did or didn't, I don't know. I know that a few months after I came out of the academy, I had to switch shifts. I came on one shift, but another shift was extremely short-staffed, and I was low man, so I got shipped over to a different shift. And it wasn't long after that I got put in a house, and I was there for 4 years. It was an Engine 7 in North Asheville. I had a great crew, and enjoyed my time there. And it was, again, a lot of that family atmosphere.
Was it a single company house?
Single company house, small, not the most, not the busiest by any means. Probably one of the slower in the city, really. But it had a very broad mix of things that you go to. UNCA is there in that district. The Grove Park Inn is right there. You've got a lot of older residential. You've got a big commercial corridor going through North Asheville. So you had a broad mix of things. We weren't busy like you were downtown by any means.
Yeah.
But I had a good crew, and it doesn't matter where you're working. If you got good people you're working with, it's a fun day.
Yeah. If I'm a new kid that is getting in, like just got a job with the fire department, you get that floater spot, and you either feel good about it or you don't. But like I would not really be excited about getting a floater spot, right? But like you said, you weren't there very long.
Yeah.
You know, so you do your time, and then you get you a spot.
Yeah.
I like it. I like his mentality about it, where it's not so much a downer of a position. It's an opportunity to go around throughout this department and make the best impression that I possibly can. So when a vacancy becomes available, I have people trying to get me into a house.
Yeah.
That's positive.
So I mean,
all the young folks listening, I hope that's the mindset that you decide to take.
Yeah.
Make the best impression so you have people wanting you to be a part of their team.
Every day's an interview.
That's right.
Right. And I mean, and I don't think that stops for 30 years. Every day's an interview.
Yeah.
And regardless of how long you've been on with a certain crew or in a certain house. I mean, we are an industry. We size each other up on a daily basis, and we better not stop, or that's when problems happen.
Sizing up. That's a perfect definition of accountability.
It is.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we are sizing each other up on a daily basis on how we're doing as firefighters, as as friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're always sizing each other up, and I think when we don't, or we get in those places where we're not sizing each other up, then that's the complacency, and that's where people just stop caring, and that's a problem. But yeah, I would love to see when I have a new person come on my truck, somebody that's been excited about the fact that they've gotten to learn different parts of different areas of the city. They've gotten to learn how Officer A works, along with how Officer B works over on the complete opposite side of town. I think it makes for a more well-rounded person, well-rounded firefighter.
Yeah,
I want to find an argument, and I can't.
Right. Well, I'm not trying to challenge you.
I want to, but I can't.
That size up thing makes me think. I didn't come up with this. Everybody's heard it a million times, but how easy it is to damage a reputation, and how long it takes to build one.
Yes,
so that helps to hold you accountable.
It takes a long time to build a good one, and about 2 seconds to tear it down.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good news travels slow. Bad news travels super fast.
Extremely fast.
Super fast. Yeah.
Extremely fast.
What do you see good things happening with the fire service right now, in general? Not Asheville, not New Hanover, but as a whole. What do you see good things that we're doing as a service in general?
As a service in general,
we'll stick with North Carolina.
Okay. Well, you want to stick with North Carolina?
Well, we can go broad, whatever comes to your brain.
Ooh,
but what are we doing? What are we doing good right now for our customers and our fellow firefighters? What are we doing good to do that? It's easy. Pointing out bad things are super easy.
Oh, it's easy. We can do that all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are we doing? What are we doing right?
What are we doing right? Let's start with what we're doing with our firefighters. I think, and I know this is something that y'all are big on. I think we are doing a better job and a good job of taking care of each other. I don't think we're there. I don't think we're doing the best job we can. That's a long process.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of mental health and making sure that the person next to you on the truck is okay, I think we're doing a better job of that. We're putting more of an emphasis on it, not just in our stations, but as a culture, as a profession in general. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're doing for ourselves. The best thing that we're doing as a profession. because it was the dirty little. I can't even. I don't know if it's the right thing to say. It was a dirty little secret for so long, and it was everybody knew it. We just didn't touch it. We didn't talk about it.
Yeah, it's the culture, man.
Yeah, it was the culture.
Yeah.
But that's changing,
It is.
and it's a slow process. But I think just it's not like I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing it. You started in 2005. I started in 2003. When did you start?
10.
10? Okay, so we're all right around the same time. It's changed drastically just in the 17, 18 years that I've been doing this. Because I know when I started, you didn't talk about that shit, and that was 2003. You didn't talk about things that bothered you. You didn't talk about things that you thought you might need to get help for. I think that's the best thing on a profession level that we're doing for the citizens itself. I think anything that we can be doing to broaden our toolbox, whether that's let's face it, we're not the only ones having mental health issues. I mean, a lot of the general public is as well. And I mean, this isn't trying to go into the realm of what community EMS or any of those things that you see going on with trying to respond more to mental health issues. But we as firefighters, we need to learn, and I think we are doing this because we're being forced to be more understanding and empathetic of what the public is dealing with, whether it's addiction and opioids or whatever it is that they're dealing with, whether it's mental health issues. We're not just going and putting fires out. We're not just going and working a cardiac arrest. We're not just working a wreck. There's times when we've got to be an ear to people too, and for better or worse, I think that's not going to stop. I think that especially with the load that has been put for so long on law enforcement, and I think is going to be kind of shifted more in our direction in terms of just helping people in crisis. Whether it may not be a fire, it may not be a emergency medical crisis, but it might be a psychological, might be a mental health crisis. We have to learn to deal with that as well. And I think there's signs that we're slowly going in that direction as well. But yeah,
I agree with you. Yeah, that's a good thing. And a perfect way to talk about what you're doing. What you're doing positive for our industry. You're doing a lot of great things, man. You need another one?
Yeah, why not?
I've got a resident bartender.
Okay.
I've got a resident bartender. Yeah, he said 2 cubes specifically.
2.5 if you have them.
Yeah. You got those half cubes?
I like where your brain's at when you talk about empathy with folks with the addictions. And I'm bad guilty of it, dude. But there's a term for it. What is it's compassion fatigue?
Yep,
dude. And I'm on a truck company, so I don't run a lot. I don't have my medical ops tempo is far less than any engine company in the county, even the slowest one. So my experience with running medical calls for the past decade, which is how long I've been with a truck company, is far slower. Yeah. But even when I've been to the same house 2 or 3 times, dude, it's so easy to just divert to what are you doing with? Yeah. I mean, what are you doing?
It's human
Why
nature.
are you doing this?
Yeah, it's human nature to do that.
The grab we had yesterday, in the fire that I was describing, there was a victim inside, and I mean there was a rescue and a save made, but he was in the process of overdosing on heroin.
Yeah.
At the time that happened, and it's just like, what the fuck, Yeah. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
So that resonates with me, and it strikes a nerve with me when you say talking about being empathetic with the people our customers, because I'm guilty of it.
I am too.
I suffer because I'm not empathetic. I don't try to be empathetic, and that's a sucky part of me that needs to be fixed.
But, you're not alone on that, though. I think
Right.
that's any of us. I think that's any of us that have been doing this for any sort of amount of a time. You have those people that you go to over and over again. You have those situations that you see over and over again, and you like you said, you go, what the fuck? Why are we doing this again?
Yeah,
why are you doing this again?
An overdose where your 9-year-old is the one calling 911. It's like, what are you doing right now? What are you doing?
And that is a battle. You're not alone in that, because that is a battle that I fight within myself on a daily basis. I work in downtown Asheville. I've worked in downtown Asheville for other than a year after I gotten promoted and kind of bounced around in different trucks that I was driving before I came back to Ladder 1. I've worked downtown for the better part of 8 or 9 years. Downtown Asheville is not exactly the easiest place to work. Just the homeless population and the I don't know if you want to call it the addiction aspect that we have in downtown through our homeless population, through the mental health crisis that you see in our homeless population. We see it a lot more in that central business district. There's definitely, it's all over the city. I'm not saying we're the only ones, because guys at Asheville, they're going to listen to this and go, man, we deal with it all the time too. And they're right. It's not just us. But we get a lot of it downtown. And it's hard, man. It's hard not to get jaded. It's hard not to go to that same person that you've picked up off the sidewalk 5 times in the last week and not, begrudgingly do it. But at the same time, I mean, and this dives into deeper realms than just the fire service. But what's, at least for me, it's only by the grace of God that's not me out there on that street corner. Mm-hmm. It's only by the grace of God that I'm not the one laid up in an apartment somewhere OD'd on something, because I went, I let those demons get a hold of me. So at the end of the day, I think, at least for myself, that's how I look at it, is, man, however fucked up it is, that's still a person at the end of the day, and that's still somebody that's somebody's baby. That's somebody's son or daughter. That's somebody's mom or daddy. And I've had a lot of people in my life that didn't give up on me, and I think we're in the business that it's our job not to give up on people either. And I try to look at it like that as I go into work every day. I'm not good at it. Right. There's plenty of times throughout the day, and you can ask the guys that I work with, that I'm like, man, what the hell? What are we doing? But I don't ever want to get to a point where I say that, and then the problem's going to be if I say that and then 20 minutes down the road, I'm not kicking myself going, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have thought that to myself. If I ever get to that point where I'm not doing this, then I've got a problem. So I don't know. I don't know if that really speaks to what you mean.
As long as your service delivery doesn't drop, a little frustration voice is, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
As long as you're still delivering properly.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we need to have more positive thoughts, but I wouldn't, like, if I'm that guy listening to this conversation, if I'm the one saying, what are we doing? Then, as long as your service delivery is still there, you're still compassionate. You're just getting a little frustrated.
Sure. And that's going to happen. That's completely natural.
That family thing, I do that. Pretty much everybody we go to, they're related to me. That's how I treat it. You know what I mean? Like, what's up, Pops?
Right.
So,
well, do you think there's aid? Do you think there's maybe, I'm trying to think of the best way to articulate what's going on in my brain. Do you think there's help when you voice your frustrations around your firehouse family? When you voice those, does it kind of hopefully a set of boundaries where people can hold you accountable? Your driver and your firefighter, for example, you start voicing these frustrations like, damn, that's the 3rd time we've been there this tour. Mm-hmm. And then, maybe, hopefully, since all this is coming to the forefront, that they'll hold you accountable and be like, Steve, you seem a little upset about all this. Are you feeling cool? Or I'm not against the idea of voicing frustration by any means, especially with the hopes and expectations that it helps hold accountability.
Yeah. I think there's different ways of doing that. I think there's definitely the direct method of what you're saying, of just like going to somebody that you work with, if you see them in that aspect of saying, you all right? Yeah, what, you good? And we all know what that means,
Yeah.
And then there's also the leading by example aspect. I think there's ways that you can do it without just straight asking that person or telling that person, you're kind of being a dick.
Yeah.
There's ways to do it without doing that.
That's my preferred method.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a time and a place for that, but I think there's also a way that hopefully that next call, where whether I or somebody else in the truck takes the lead, and really that person who it very could easily be a situation where you're frustrated and just vent, or treat them as not as important as another patient. You step up and treat them that way anyway. And I think a lot of times that almost makes more of an impact on the people around you, or the people that you work with, than just a direct word, because then they're seeing it. They're seeing that person being treated in that manner, and not just having a conversation in an office in a firehouse.
Yeah, well, but they probably feel somewhat offended by that, which is, that's not inappropriate.
Sure.
If you see a job that you normally are doing and feel a certain type of way about it, but then you kind of get sour, and then that is a reflection on the next situation, what somebody else takes the place that you normally are in, that should be some awry and cause of concern within yourself.
Yeah.
What did I do? Or, this, something's different.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
What you're saying makes sense.
I think, anytime you can lead by example on anything, I think it makes for a deeper impact in a lot of ways than trying to make words stick.
Yeah.
So
I like how normal the checking on each other is starting to get. Like
yeah.
Like you said, years ago, it was not okay to even talk about anything like that.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Do you remember? So this is I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit. Do you remember the first time somebody really asked you that, like at work? Like, are you okay? Or has anybody ever asked you that? Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when that happened? The first time somebody actually did that to you?
Yes.
Did it make an impact?
No.
Really?
Nope.
No. I'm not. That's not a loaded question. I'm curious.
No, it did not. We can get as descriptive as we want, but this show's not about me. But yes, I can 100% remember the first time anybody asked me that, and I can remember me almost being upset that anybody even asked me that.
Yeah.
Just due to the fact that it was like, how dare you ask me if I'm okay?
Because of culture?
Dude, I've been doing this since you were sucking on your mom. How dare you? But
so it was somebody younger than you or less seniority than you that did it.
Yeah,
That's
but I wasn't
okay.
I wasn't too salty into the service yet.
Yeah.
I can remember the exact incident that it even happened on, and it was relatable for me, even still then. But just my first thought was,
who the hell are you?
Yeah. Why are you asking me this?
Right.
And that's shame on me, is what that is. For sure, shame on me. But yeah, I remember it. But it was very.
That's really interesting to hear you say that. Yeah. I'm
very much a believer in how Steve referenced it in one of our shows, and I do it still to this day. There's the 3-question method. You came up with this to begin with. I use it a lot now, but when you ask somebody they're okay the first time, their first answer is not true. Their second answer, you ask them again, so are you okay? Their second answer is not true, but they're thinking a little more. Then the third time, no, like, are you okay?
Yeah.
And then the third time, they're like, I don't know. or So there's the three question. And my first experience was just the first one. You all right? Yeah. Are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know, man. My bringing into the fire service was the very much Superman mentality, and that's the way it was.
Yeah.
So I'm not a great example to ask.
And I might be completely the opposite, because I'm usually, and I think most anybody that knows me, or the guys that I work with that know me well, they would say I'm a heart on my sleeve kind of person.
That's a great characteristic trait to have, though.
At times.
Well, I mean, dude, I'd rather have yours than mine.
Well. Yeah,
maybe there's a balance between us.
But it's just the reason I was asking that, because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a loaded question, because I was genuinely curious of what that experience was like for you. Because I remember for myself, it was a totally opposite situation.
Right.
Where I was still a fairly new firefighter. This is before I went to the city, and we had a call that was pretty traumatic. And I remember a guy that was, very much more seasoned than me, and coming up to me after the call, and while we were back at the station, and I was trying to get the hell out of there. I didn't want anything to do with it. I just wanted to get away. And he just came up to me, and he didn't even have to say anything. He just basically just grabbed me and said, "You all right?" And I lost my shit. Lost it. But I think the only reason I did was because I knew that he was worried.
Yeah.
I knew I could do that.
Right.
And I think that's the point. I knew at that moment that I could, that he was sincerely worried about how I was doing. He wasn't just asking it to check a box or to sound like it was the right thing to do.
What a pioneer, because that was before it was okay.
Yeah. And he didn't even, and I guarantee you, if this individual were to listen to this, he probably won't even remember it.
Right.
But it made a massive impact on me, because somebody took the time, not just somebody, but somebody that I looked up to in this job, took the time to grab me and say, "You good?"
Man, that speaks so much volumes to kind of where we're at as a fire service culture, as it is now, where we have you as an example, and your example as a new person, and us seasoned folks just asking, "Are you okay?" It might not mean anything to us, just like the example you gave. You said he couldn't probably even remember it, but it made the biggest difference to you. Mm-hmm. I mean, shame on me for not asking more.
Well, but it's not about shame. It's not about that. It's about, this is something that we're all having to learn.
Right.
It's something that we're all having to figure out as we're going along, because we've all, unless you just started into this a year ago, we're all in that. We're all in that same boat of, we've been brought up into the, you just got to deal with it. You try to get through it and push through it and not let it bother you. And I don't know, I guess for myself, I reached a point several years ago where for lack of better terms, I just looked at it and said, screw that. I'm not going to do that anymore, because it's not getting me anywhere. If anything, it's taking me into deeper, darker places. And I don't know, maybe it's gaining, time in the service and maybe being more comfortable in your skin that way. Maybe it's just getting older in general.
Wisdom,
I just don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah, wisdom.
I don't care what anybody thinks. If somebody's got a problem with the fact that I'm worried about the mental health of the person next to me, well, they can go get bent for all I care. Because, at the end of the day, those are the things that keep me up at night. Those are the things I'm getting on a soapbox right now.
Nah, bring it.
As a leader in like a local, at Asheville Firefighters Association, the things that keep me up at night aren't if one of my members is going to get hurt. That's going to happen at times. That's our job. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I also know that I work with some of most top-notch firefighters in the state of North Carolina, and I know that they're going to take care of themselves and they're going to do the best they can. Things are going to happen. That's not what keeps me up at night. What keeps me up at night is the worry that one of my firefighters is going to slip through the cracks in terms of us making sure they're okay and harm themselves or harm somebody else or do something irreparable because we missed the signs or nobody asked them if they were okay. That's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And that's been a driving force in the way that I look at that whole issue of mental and behavioral health in the fire service. And for me, it started back in 2017. Well, it started before that. I guess you said when we first started talking, you had read the blog that I've been working on.
Absolutely.
So you've probably read some things that I've written about this same exact situation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So before that, I had definitely kind of come to grips more with the aspect of my own, making sure I'm okay. When we went to International Association of Firefighters Convention in 2016, and they made the big push and started really talking about peer support in the fire service and in the international. I came away from that thinking we need that. We need that in Asheville, and I want to take that on. At that point, Greensboro, I think, was the only department or local in the state that had any sort of IAFF peer support training. And I saw it as a golden opportunity. Like, I want to get us in on that. So in February 2017, we brought in the IAFF peer support class to Asheville. It's one of the things, as in my position as Secretary Treasurer at AFFA, in the 8 years that I've been there, that's probably one of the things that, if not the biggest thing that I'm proud of, is that we brought it in, and I brought those guys in at that time to do that class. We got 25 of our people peer support certified through the IAFF. We've had 5 more since then through other classes around the state. I think that helped change that culture. I hope it did, anyway. Because I've seen it just in myself with individuals within our department that I know of that we have helped through the peer support program. I know of people that have just talked to me one-on-one that we have helped get services, and those are wins. Yeah. Those mean more to me, just as much to me, than making sure that we have the right benefit package, that we have the best pay that we can, making sure that somebody is squared away and they're going to go home, and that they're healthy up here.
It seems like you put a lot of thought into it. Like you're passionate.
I am, man.
Yeah. You said something when the guy asked you if you were okay.
Yeah.
You said you were just trying to get out of there. Was that like you were just trying to shed that moment? Like, I got to get out of this situation? Or in your brain, like real talk, were you like, I don't want to be a part of the fire service? Like, what was the...
No, I just wanted to get away from that situation. It wasn't ever an issue. And I know people that have, and I'm not discounting that. It's never been an issue with me in any sort of traumatic, instance that I've had to deal with. It's never been an issue of, I don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And I know that's a real thing. I know.
I was going to say, sometimes I worry that we lose high quality, talented individuals because of calls that are run,
sure.
And you come back and they're like, I don't want to see anymore.
Yeah, the same for me.
Yeah. I guarantee you we probably do.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely true. For me, it's never been that aspect of, I don't want to do this anymore. In that circumstance, it was more, I just want to get away from here. right now. I don't want to be here.
Right now sucks.
Right now sucks. I don't want to think about this.
Yeah.
And it was at a time in this was before I went to the city. I was at a time in my career and in my, just as a person, I wasn't mature. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to deal with that in that situation. And I didn't really that made an impact on him asking me that, but I didn't deal with it. I didn't deal with that situation. Mm-hmm. It had an impact in the fact that I felt okay enough to just kind of just let my guard down in that moment. But it wasn't until you spoke the blog, there's something I wrote in there about an instance or a call that we had in 2015 that really, I think that was the turning point for me. Because that was the first time when I really let myself say to myself, it's okay. I don't have to be ashamed of, feeling bad about this. Mm-hmm. Or I don't have to feel bad about the fact that this is hard for me. And that was freeing in a lot of ways. And I think that opened up more that I don't know if it's empathy or that passion for trying to make sure that everybody else has that as well.
I think what you did in describing that instance and just describing the emotion that came with that, and being okay with that, man, I think that's the worst call of my life. Absolute worst instance of my entire life. I can tell you the date. I can tell you the time. I can tell you the time the call came out. Mm-hmm. I can tell you the name of the person.
Yep.
I can tell you the situation, and I can tell you the whole thing, just like that. And it visits from time to time.
Sure.
But that was many years ago, 2011. It was many years ago, and I've buried it because that's what I've been taught to do. Mm-hmm. Bury it. You bury it, you go on. That person doesn't affect your next call. It can't. You have a job to do, and this call's over. You do your job now. But being able to do what you do, I'm very envious of it. Just because
what do you mean? What are you?
The way you're able to let your situation breathe. You're okay with that. You're able to let that out. Your ability to be vulnerable, I'm envious of it because I'm not. There's two people on this planet that know that story with me. Yeah, like I said, that's what my nightmares are made of.
Yeah.
There's two people, my wife and my captain who was there with me. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the only two. The paramedics have since long gone. I mean, I don't even know if they still work here anymore. But and I don't even know if he remembers the call. But for me, I mean, I revisit it. So I envy you. And I think there's more of that. And one day, I hope to be there where I feel comfortable doing what you're doing because I think it's so damn beneficial to know that that's okay, to be that way.
It's, I appreciate you saying that. I will say it is selfish on my part, what I'm doing. And what I mean by that, I don't mean it in a negative way. Right. By doing that, the whole reason I started this whole blog thing and trying to just write about things, whether it's about work, whether it's about my family, whether it's about anything else, it's more, it's because, I've always liked to write. I don't know that I'm necessarily good at it, but
you're fantastic at it.
I enjoy doing it.
Throw that out. Yeah.
I like doing it. But B, it helps me. There's a lot of times I feel like I get my thoughts out better when I'm writing them down than I do when I'm talking.
I feel that.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of people feel that way. And for me, it's cathartic in the aspect that I can get those things on paper, something that has been rattling around my brain in that aspect for, kind of like what you're saying. I don't have only two people that knew that story. There was a whole group of people around me that day.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, there's very few people that know that story. But for me to put that out there, it helps me because I get to process it more than I probably did at the time. It forces me to stop and think about it. It forces me to kind of run through it, put it on paper, make sure that I'm really thinking about it. The other aspect of it is that, while it is selfish, I hope that it does help somebody. I hope somebody does get not that I'm like thinking or hoping that everybody goes out and starts writing down things that are bothering them or things that are big in their life. But I hope somebody gets something out of it. And the biggest thrill and it's not like I've been writing this whole blog thing that long, but the biggest thrill that I've had is I had a boy reach out to me from a neighboring department that basically he had talked about the fact that he read that and it resonated so much with him because he had gone through something very similar and how much it meant to him to read that and how it made him feel like it was okay. All right, job done.
It's a lead by example.
That meant more to me than anything.
Sure.
And if that one person, got something out of that, all right.
It sounds really familiar.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny, we're kind of jumping back into the meat of it, but I've had worse instances than that day. I've had worse calls.
Yeah, me as well. Far worse.
What got me that day though was everything else in life that was going on in life at that time. That's why that day was the worst day. And that's what I think we as a fire service need to keep a better eye on. There's all sorts of calls we go to on a daily basis where it ain't that bad in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. Or we've seen way worse. But we don't know what the guy next to us is dealing with that day. We don't know what is going on in his life or her life at that moment. And it might be that thing that puts them over the edge. And that's a hard place to be, man.
Yeah, we talk about
hard
that.
Hard place.
Yeah, me and myself, Steve, Jeremy, we all agree, and I'm sure you will as well, but the what we call the 99%, because if you really think in the grand scheme of what it means to be a firefighter, there's 1% of what you see on TV, which is actually what we really do, doing our job. I mean, that's 1% of what we do. Mm-hmm. So the 99% being hyper-focused on the 99%, where it's your people, what's home life like? What's around the firehouse like? Is the firehouse a stressful place for you, or is it a therapeutic place for you? Mm-hmm. Is it a place you can relate, or is it a place you feel disconnected? And then your home life, what does that look like? And then how does the home life play into the parts of the firehouse?
Yeah.
It's a disconnect from, and I think what we do here is how we fix it.
Yeah. I think it's, whether it's a vulnerability or whatever you want to call it, it's important. The best, hearing what you just said, the best, I don't know, I guess compliment, I would say is what it is. The best compliment I've ever gotten in the fire. And this is going to be tough for me to actually probably talk about a little bit because I'll explain. The best compliment I've probably ever gotten in the fire service was around that same time, or a little bit after that, or it was during that time frame of that incident we were talking about. I was working on a truck. I was working on Squad 1 at Asheville, and I had an officer who I thought the world of. No offense to any other officer I've ever worked for. I don't give a damn. I'll say it. Eric Johnson was the best officer I've ever worked for in Asheville Fire Department. Mm-hmm. And probably the best compliment I've ever gotten as a firefighter, or what meant the most to me, I guess, was I was at a wedding one time for another one of our guys on our crew. And Eric was my officer during a time in my life when I was not at my best. I was it's around the same time of the incident, and I don't know if people are listening to this probably like, what the hell is he talking about?
Put in the show notes.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Don't know what you're talking about.
I was knee deep in a divorce. Just wasn't in a good place in my personal life. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of things going on in my personal life that were just rough. And I was kind of coming on the other side of those things at this time. But I was at a wedding for another one of our guys, and this officer, this captain, his wife, I was standing there talking to her, me and another guy, and she looked at me and she said, "Do you know how much he worries about y'all when you're not at work?" And I was just kind of taken aback. Of course, I was a few drinks in, and I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Do you know how much he thinks about y'all and how much he worries about y'all when he's not at work? He's always worrying about so-and-so." You know, one of my coworkers, he was about to have a baby at the time. He's always worrying about that. He's always wondering or asking, thinking about you and your divorce at that time. And man, damn near put me in tears right there, standing there talking to her, because this is a guy who, he's going to kick my ass for saying all that. Yeah. This is a guy who does not suffer fools lightly. He always, you never have to guess where you stand with him. You always know.
I like him.
You're damn right. He expects you to do your job and to do it well. And he's not going to give you a ton of praise about it, but he'll tell you did a good job. And if you fucked up, he's going to tell you so, and you're going to go on and go about your business.
Yeah.
I'm a cheerleader for this dude.
Hoffman's a fan.
And that meant more to me, hearing that from him. No, he's not with our department anymore, and that hurts. That hurts because we need about 15, 20 more of him.
Yeah,
right.
In that department, and he's the best leader that I've ever had. And not only that, he's been one of the best damn friends that I've ever had.
Sounds like we need a fire service full of those.
At a time in my life when I desperately needed friends like that. And point being, we should be that to each other.
Absolutely.
Way more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way more.
And you said that was his
wife.
That was his wife that told you
and
that.
I don't. He's never heard that story. And if he listens to that, he's going to be pissed. But he doesn't work with me anymore. So what is he going to do? You know.
Yeah. Kudos to the wife, though.
Yeah. Amy, if you're listening,
kudos
thanks for
to
letting
you,
me know
chick.
that, because that meant a lot.
Kudos to the chick for sure.
So to anybody that's listening, just think about your people.
Yeah,
because it means more to them than you know it does. So,
when I asked you about if you were thinking about leaving the fire service, I assumed in my head, I was just listening to that part of your story, and I was like, man, if you were, like, if that was one of those moments where you could make a bad decision, you know, like how much cooler it makes it that it's getting normal to be able to have these conversations.
Yeah.
So you might prevent somebody from making a bad decision. It doesn't have to be. Bad decisions aren't just dramatic and terrible. There's also changes in employment and different things that happen that can be prevented just by making it normal to have conversations after.
Yeah,
you know?
And I think it is becoming, for all the cliche that we put on it sometimes, I really do think it is becoming more normal around the station to hear people talking about like how you're feeling.
Yeah.
You're still going to get those that it's like feelings.
Yeah, right.
But
keep your damn feelings to yourself.
Keep them to yourself. Freaking me out. But I as a whole, I really think, and maybe it might be a generational thing.
Yeah, perhaps.
Because I think we are actually the last of a generation that really understand what that suck it up mentality is like. Because I think the ones coming in now, especially the ones that are in their early 20s, or it's a different It's a different frame of mind.
Well, everything's aired online.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
Everything's public.
Yeah. So I don't. It's a culture shift, whether we like it or not, because we got different culture of people coming into the fire service. So,
It's a whole nother podcast.
oh boy, yeah.
I'm not sure if we've dived in that subject a little
We
bit.
have talked. We talked a little bit about that with mental health and kind of the way we're handling things within our service. If you could wave like this magic wand and make all of our issues and our struggles go away, what would your end product look like?
In the fire service?
Yeah. And we're talking about mental health in general. Now, we can't get on the subject of apparatus and personnel and all that. I mean, we can get on that if you want, but let's just keep it, since we're right here with mental health, let's keep it with that.
Yeah, and I mean, this might sound too simplistic, but I'll try to expound on it. To me, if I could wave a magic wand and everything was to be okay in terms of our people and behavioral health, mental health, it would just be that nobody is scared to step up and say, I need help.
It's fair.
That's it.
It's fair.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's twofold. It would be that nobody's scared to step up and say, I need help. I don't know how to deal with this. I've got a problem. I need you to help me. B, the other side of that is that nobody that they work with or nobody in that department poo-poos on them for it. That everybody, that whoever they talk to, they never get a response that makes them feel like that was a bad decision.
Yeah, you're lesser than because.
Yes.
Yeah.
That might be even more the magic wand answer than people feeling like it's okay to say something.
Maybe the ramifications.
Yeah.
There not being any of saying that I have an issue.
And
I agree with that.
Honestly, I think it really goes back to kind of what we were talking about at the very beginning is talking about the family aspect. If your mother or father were to come to you, or your brother and your sister, I only assume, I don't have any. But if your family member were to come to you and say, I've got a problem. I'm not okay. I need help. Would you give them down the road about it? And that's a hypothetical. I mean, that's not hypothetical. That's a what's the word? You don't have to answer it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Rhetorical
Question. Yeah. Point being, we're all the time spouting about the fact that we're brothers and sisters in the fire service. We're all the time talking about how this is family. If we're not going to do that to our family in our house, we damn sure better not do it to our family in our other house.
That's another subject as well. The brotherhood aspect. I think that's another discussion, which we can talk about that too later if you want. That's fine with me. I probably feel like we would share some perspective on that as well. But
if you don't walk it, walk. Or if you don't talk it, let's walk it. Yeah. Let's do it. I mean,
brotherhood sounds good until it's time to nut up.
Until the rubber meets the road. Yeah.
I'm with you.
I think that's probably the magic wand issue more than anything. Yeah, as I was saying it kind of became more clear to me. Not the so much of feeling people feeling comfortable to do it. The fact of whoever they talk to, they're gonna find somebody there that.
If that happens, if your goal of that, the magic wand gets done, it would make the pre-bad call anxiety for folks way less.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like nobody wants to go on a bad call,
I
right?
agree.
Yeah,
but if you know that if you are going on a bad one, that the crew's with you before and after, then it makes it less of a...
And I think what it does is it compounds on itself. Because I think the longer you go into your career, the more and more you think of yourself as, I'm the one that's got to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
Because these younger guys are going to be looking at me as the one that, is stoic and
got
tough.
all the answers.
Yeah, they got all the answers. He's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know that was kind of the case in my situation that day. Was I had people riding with me that day that were less seniority and had been longer, less than me. And I don't know if it's being salty or whatever the hell you want to call it, but I was trying to be, I think part of it was I was trying to be that tough mentality because if I can't be showing out or be weak if they're not going to. Ended up at the end of the day, we all ended up needing it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were all in a group together in the debriefing, feeling the feelings, and that's okay, and we all I think we all came out better because of it.
Yeah. Well, it's all okay when you know that it's all okay.
Yeah. So that's right.
The approach and the upbuild to all of this is to know that it's all okay because we all need it.
That's right.
Whether you can relate directly or you can relate from another instance. Like, I mean, there's the sky's the limit with examples of how any incident can relate with anybody. It can be the simplest thing.
We had a conversation at lunch about, like, in that moment, you said you had your divorce was looming on you, and we were talking at lunch about how you can have an opinion about something, like somebody asks you a question, and today's answer, because of your surroundings, might be wildly different than 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago or a year from now.
Yeah.
There's a lot to...
Variables make a big difference in a situation.
Absolutely. Yep. And it might not be the worst call you ever went on. Like you were saying earlier, like it's this one or that one, it's the whole picture.
Yeah. One. I mean, that one sucked. That was a bad call.
Yeah.
I'd been on ones like it before.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the first time.
Yeah. I relate 100%. I've been on far.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're just basing it off of a trauma incident, I mean, I've been on way worse, but I don't know why. That was it for me. That was your incidents for me. That was just, I mean, I don't know why, but it was.
If we can teach people the process, I say teach, I'm still learning, so don't take that as downward. But if we can show that process of being presented with a terrible event and then what that looks like to get through it, and that it's okay to ask for help and to talk about it with other folks, it's the process that is the common ground. Every call is going to be different, right? And it might be, this one for that guy, but the process will still be the same.
Yeah.
I don't want to get this twisted by any means.
Okay.
But we were talking earlier about Blue Card.
All right.
We're talking. You totally echoed the fact that I talked about the shiny coin.
Sure.
And the fire service loves to chase the shiny coin.
Yeah.
Do you have any feelings or any fears that the mental health aspect of our service and kind of where it's going, where we all want it to go with the correct reasons?
Yeah.
We know it's an issue. We're on the streets. We beat the streets. We know it's an issue. But on the other end of things, the higher up side of things, the not so beating the streets, the ones who can relate so deeply with it that we can, do you feel that the mental health thing could possibly move its way into the shiny coin arena and more or less make folks feel that if they don't feel a certain type of way, that they're excluded? So maybe that's that might be a very, very, very multiplex answer, or a question.
I think there's a few different questions in there.
There probably is.
Let's start with the first part of it. Do I think that it could become? I think if I'm hearing you correctly, it could be like a trend. Could it be like a fad?
Yeah, absolutely. It could be a new shiny coin.
And I don't.
Okay.
And the reason I don't, I think it's only going to get. It's only going to become more important. I say that because I think as an industry, we're putting more and more emphasis on it, which we do the same thing with the shiny coins.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But those shiny coins, at the end of the day, a lot of times they don't have to deal with life and death of our coworkers, and this one does. When we brought in peer support certification through the IAFF there at Asheville, I asked one of the instructors one day, I said, do you think that we're killing ourselves more than we were 30, 40 years ago? Because the statistics would kind of show that we are. And he thought about it for a minute, and this is a guy that was a retired battalion chief from Chicago. I mean, he'd been around the block. He'd seen some things. Been around it for a while. And he's now a clinician. Like, I mean, a licensed mental health clinician. It's not somebody that's just, making something off the top of his head. And he thought about it and he said, no, I don't think we're killing each other anymore or killing ourselves any more than we were before. I think we've always been doing this. It's just now it's out in the open more. And I agree with that. I think that might be one of the biggest catalysts for change that we've seen in the last 5-10 years is that it is out in the open more. It's talked about more. I don't see that going away. If anything, I think we're going to keep on talking about it more. And I think that's a good thing. In terms of how departments feel about it, truck room floor versus admin, I don't see it changing on that aspect either. That being said, I'm insulated. I'm from Asheville.
Right.
I'm very proud of this. We are a very progressive department in terms of mental health and behavioral health. We just got an award as a department for the emphasis that we put on mental and behavioral health inside of our department. So I know for us, I don't see it going away anytime soon. In fact, I think there's things that we could do way better. Yeah, I hope I'm right about that.
Me too.
I really, as I'm saying that, I'm like, man, I really hope I'm right about it.
If you follow fire service trends, though,
I know.
it's what's the opposite word of hopeful?
Well,
I mean, you know what I mean? That's where it feels. But I understand and I feel what you're saying when it's different because it's not a strategy, it's not a tactic, it's not a.
This isn't whether a 2.5 or an 1 3/4 is the right.
It's not a strat. It's the care of our people. Yeah. So I feel what you're saying.
Yeah.
But if you look at the fire service as a trend, it's
it doesn't give a lot of hope for that.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. It seems like that's what's on the forefront right now with cultural society over here in the left and what's going on non-fire service that seems to somehow leak its shit ways into our fire service. However we want to say that with new folks, with just whatever it may be.
Yeah. So something, we were talking just a few minutes ago about the difference in culture in terms of generational. We're coming in as well to the fire service. That actually gives me more hope of why it will not go away. Because I think the young individuals that are coming into our department, whereas we were talking about, we're the ones that were we're the last of, in my opinion, the breed of you just suck it up and just deal with it. We are now into a generation, I think, that when they're coming in this fire service, they've been inundated through culture outside of the fire service of feelings and dealing with mental health because it's way more out in the open in the outside world. I think that's going to seep in. I think that's going to seep into the fire service. And I'm hopeful, and I might be naive in saying this, but I really do think that it's just going to keep on. It might be a slow process, but it's. I don't see it going away. I hope not. And I'm sure as shit not going to let it go.
Good.
I mean, I'm not. I get the impression y'all aren't either. So I listened to the episode you had with Ken Hoke.
All right.
And I think he had a really good point that kind of relates back to this, and it goes back to somewhat what we were talking about earlier in terms of the culture around the firehouse and the family aspect of it. Culture around the firehouse and the aspect of, he was talking about this, and I see it all the time in our own department. Is you walk into a fire station and people are off in their own separate corner on their phone, doing their own little thing, and they're not together anymore. That's a problem. What can Matt Hoffman do in his house? What can Matt Hoffman do with his crew? What can Steve Hunt do with his crew? What can I do in my house? I think that's where the difference is made, because at the end of the day, and in the grand scheme of things, John Q. firefighter that rides with us, they're not, unless they're reading every damn, Facebook page and website under the sun about the fire service, they're not extremely plugged in to the national trend of the fire service, and it's not going to make a big difference in the day-to-day life. But what is going to make a difference is if they see their officer, their engineer, their coworkers setting an example. And I mean, shit, maybe that's the answer. Maybe we don't worry about what we're doing as a service. Maybe we just worry about what we're doing as Ladder 1 at Asheville, or what we're doing at New Hanover.
Wow.
Yeah. Your question earlier, the shiny penny thing, you indicated like the rank, like out here on the street or at the rank level. I imagined like the naysayers or just the hard sell, like guys that are just kind of questioning, like where are we going? Is this a shiny penny? Is this just here today, gone tomorrow?
The Hoffmans, you can say that.
The Hoffmans out there.
That's fine.
Check your motives.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So, meaning if it's going to be a shiny penny, the motives are in the wrong spot. But I agree. I don't think it's going anywhere, at least on the streets, because the motives are in the right spot. Like, there's show me a place where the motives are wrong, and then you might see something that's not going to survive.
Yeah, and I really do go back to what I said at the beginning. Is that question is you can debate how long your pre-connect should be all day long, but at the end of the day, when it's something that's really a life or death situation with the people you work with, and this is, I mean, people can try to downplay it all they want to, but the mental health issue in the fire service, that is a life and death issue. And that resonates with people much more than, how we're going to lay into a hydrant. And I think that resonates, and it's going to stay around longer, to what Steve's saying.
What you just said, I'm sure the people who watch this will probably see it. Hopefully Steve can edit it to that part. But you saw me shove the mic out of my face.
I did.
Well, that's body language. But it was a realization. We're missing it.
Hit me. What you got?
We're missing it. And what you said made perfect sense. My approach is how do we approach mental health, and how do we approach this whole mental hygiene and mental health situation from the top down? Well, we're missing it. This show and your goal and our goal, but it's we're missing it. It's not about that. It's about what Matt Hoffman can do to change it. It's about what Steve Hunt can do. It's about what Matt can do in Asheville. It's we're missing it. The answer is not what can we do for the fire service. The answer is what can I do for my house.
That's right.
Yeah,
I think I really do think that's the biggest part of it, and that's where you make the biggest difference.
Yeah,
because I mean,
I'm speechless. I don't know how to make it. That makes more sense to me than anything I've ever tried to put together in my head. Was quit approaching it as a whole, as what can the fire service do for its people, but what can the individual members do for the fire service?
Well,
I've never thought about it like that.
Take that, and then think about if everybody in the state of North Carolina were to start thinking of it in that way. Well, then you've changed the whole damn state. Think about how revolutionary that would be. The only things that we really have control over is what goes on in our own firehouse.
Oh, wait, I mean, you can even make it smaller than that. I mean,
on our own truck.
Yeah, or you.
Yeah, or yourself. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, you can't control what happens. I can't control what happens with Steve.
That's right.
I can't control what happens with you
or
Jeremy, but I mean, yeah, that's I have to be pondering on that for quite a while. That's a new way of thinking that I've never thought about. That's how to affect the fire service as a whole when it comes to mental health for the positive. It may be too broad for me.
Yeah. The problem is though.
Maybe that's the small steps when you think about I'm not trying to cut you
No,
off.
by all means.
But when you think about the theory of organizational change, the missed aspects when it comes to business world, corporate world, when it comes to organizational change, is the facilitation of the change, where the idea be grand for the corporation, but seems small to the individuals in the cubicles, is the communication aspect between the two. The leadership can't communicate or misses the communication aspect with the people in the cubicle of how important they are for the outcome. That's the lack of communication. So maybe, and I'm totally open to criticism, but maybe the issue is not approaching it from the corporation aspect, but plugging into the cubicle worker, as in us on the streets, and how we can make the outcome. Don't let it come from here back, but go from here.
Well, let's relate it outside the fire service.
Okay.
So your last episode, you had Josh Smith on. I just killed this mic. Hang on.
Oh, fix it, dude.
We're good. We're back. You had Josh Smith on, and you guys talked a lot about politics.
Right.
Okay. All politics is local. You can talk about, national politics and grand scheme of things and Congress and presidents all you want to. It ain't gonna make a damn bit of difference. Politics is all local. It's all what goes on in your community. That's where it starts and where the most impact on you is.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. Same thing in the firehouse. Same thing in the fire service. I think one of the biggest problems that we have is ourselves, in the aspect of whether it's trying to fix this problem, trying to fix something in our personal life, trying to fix anything. We are fixers.
Well, that's an alpha mentality.
We are alpha. It's an alpha mentality. We are fixers. We expect that we can roll up on something in 5 minutes' time. We might not get it completely fixed, but we're going to make a big difference in it. We're going to make it better, and we're going to go on our way.
That's right. We're going to make progress.
And we live our life accordingly in our personal lives as well.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I'm saying that right now because I'm guilty of it in my personal life. In terms of my household, my marriage, this it's something I battle on a daily basis. Is that mentality of I fix things, I make them better, and we go on about our way. That ain't life, boys. That's not.
Stop it.
Yeah, that ain't how it works, and it's painful to realize, but that's not how it works.
Quit it! You're destroying my dreams.
Yeah, sorry, that's not how it works, and it's taken a lot of beat downs on my aspect, my part to see that that's the case. And I think this is just another example of that. Is that we think that we're going to come up with some sort of magic bullet. We're going to come up with some sort of magic silver bullet on how to fix the mental health aspect in the fire service or the culture aspect in the fire service, and we're going to do it, and bam.
Well, that's the shiny coin.
It's a shiny coin. Yeah, exactly like you said.
We got a problem. Cool.
Yeah. Well,
let's make a group.
Simple. Let's make a committee.
Yeah, let's make a committee, and they're going to dedicate themselves to solving this problem.
Yeah. When really, at the end of the day, we're talking about relationships. And whether it's relationships in the firehouse or in your personal life or it's marriage, that shit takes work. And it's a long haul investment. And I'm saying that as somebody who has, had to learn that a lot the hard way over the years, is that you don't fix things, you don't make things better overnight. We're not going to make this better overnight. But that don't mean we don't quit trying, and we don't keep talking about it. Just like in I don't know. I focus on the marriage because my wife is the most important thing in my world, and B, I've screwed one up before. You know, it is what it is. But you have to keep working. You have to keep talking. You have to keep trying. And then when you don't, that's when things start getting messy.
Well, I mean,
and it's the same thing whether it's a relationship in your home or in your professional home.
Well, it's a relationship with your kids. It's a relationship with anybody. It's constant work.
Yeah,
it's constant work. God, and it's exhausting. Jesus.
Yeah, but you know what it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be. I don't disagree with you there. I want to find an argument, but I can't. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure, my dude. I can appreciate more the perspective and insight. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate that. It's an honor to be on here. It kind of took me off guard that I was even asked, and man, I appreciate it. And I think you guys are doing a hell of a job what you're doing here, and I hope it just keeps on growing.
Where can folks find your blog and find some things that you're doing to work for the betterment of our people?
Well, in terms of the blog, they can go to balancedperspective.com. I'm sure we'll put that on the show notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll put that on there. But if they want to subscribe to that, that's good. You can always also catch me on social media if they want to on any of the platforms with that, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, any of that.
That's just at Matt Ballance or
no
squirrely stuff in there.
We'll put those in the. I can't remember off the top of my head. We'll put those in the show notes.
Balance, heavy swinger.
No, it's none of that. No.
Pipe hitter.
No, it's all pretty standard stuff. Nothing too grandiose. But in terms of it, I would definitely encourage people to check out, of course, Asheville Firefighters Association.
Yeah.
Check out our stuff on social media and all those as well, and the PFFPNC, because we're doing some damn good things in this state.
Couldn't agree more.
And we're going places, and it's really exciting to be a part of. So
awesome, man. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure once again.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
It's been great, man. I've enjoyed the hell out of this.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. I have as well, man. It's been a blast.
Yeah. Steve?
Nice. Good show. That was great.
Jeremy?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming, Matt.
Beautiful.
This is great.
All right, man.
Good deal.